So as we get older, we go through chunks of, say, 5 years where we change massively. What we are now was a completely different person to what we were 5 years ago. And as people progress through their careers, their values and beliefs change. But what a lot of people
This is Tom Harris, who's a career coach and who I asked on to take us to the beginning and talk about just how does someone start to make a change to their career. So if you know you're not happy and you know you need to make a change, but you just don't know where to begin, then this episode's for you. I'm Jeremy Klein, and this is Change Work Life. Hi everyone, and welcome to Change Work Life, the show that's all about helping you beat the Sunday evening blues. My guest this week is Tom Harris, who actually started out selling hot chickens for a large retailer. That's Sainsbury's, one of the biggest grocery retailers in the UK here. And we'll hear about how, whilst working for Sainsbury's, he got into coaching before deciding to set up his own business. I was particularly keen to get Tom on to take us really back to the basics and the question of just where do you start? So you're in a job, you've been doing it for a while, but you know you're not happy and you just don't know where to start. Well, that's where Tom's going to help us. So let's get straight in. Hi Tom, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. So first off, can you tell us a bit about yourself and what you do now, what you do for a living?
Yep. So what I do now is I'm a career coach, and I help people escape retail specifically, and amongst other careers as well, and I help them land careers that they love.
Okay. And why specifically retail?
So from a retail point of view, that's my background. So roll back 10 years ago, I started in retail myself, found myself in that career for 10 years. Until redundancy came about. And as a result of that, I felt that I needed to make a change in my life, having done that amount of time in retail. And I wanted to do something completely different. So now that's where I find myself now as a career coach.
Okay. So how did you go from being in retail to being a career coach? It seems like quite a shift, actually.
Yep. So when I started at Sainsbury's, that's a specific retailer that I work for, I started on the hot chicken counter. After probably about a couple of years, I'd worked my way up into management. As I progressed up the line, I worked my way into coaching. So that's where the kind of link comes in from me in terms of the coaching world. So I became a regional coach for Sainsbury's, looking after 32 sites, coaching their teams to improve performance and to improve workforce capability. And yeah, that's effectively how I identified my route in terms of taking my skills that I had from that coaching and then providing it to the out into the world effectively.
Okay, so there was actually an opportunity within Sainsbury's, a huge retailer in the UK. There was actually an opportunity within that environment to become a coach sort of internally.
Yeah, it's a key skill that a lot of people in retail have. One that's massively underrated, to be fair, in terms of what you get in there, because it's such a dynamic working environment. You do have to move quickly and work quickly, and coaching skills come quite naturally once you've worked in retail for quite a long time. But it is one that's massively underrated by those that work in retail. And I developed those skills over 5 or 6 years, got pretty good at it, to be fair. And I thought, actually, there's something where I can actually help people outside of the retail environment and those that are still in retail get to where they want to be through coaching.
Okay. And so when you were at Sainsbury's, what made you sort of attracted you to actually having a coaching role within the organisation?
I think for me personally, I've always enjoyed working with people, which you'd hope that I had that skill considering I worked in a customer-facing retailer. And it was that working with people and seeing people progress and seeing people move along in their careers. You know, a lot of people that I was working with when I worked into management, I saw a lot of people that worked under me progress through the company as a result of my coaching. And for me, that was probably the most rewarding part about my job. And that's where I saw actually the more coaching I could do, the more effective I was going to be in my career and in Sainsbury's, and the more fulfillment I got from my work.
Okay. And so when you were made redundant, did you go straight from that to basically setting up your own business?
No, it was a longer journey than that. So when the redundancy news broke, you go through a consultation period effectively. So it's, even though it sounds like it's something that happened suddenly, I think it was about 3 months in total, going from hearing the news to when I knew that I was going to be exiting the business. So I very much used that time to hone my skills a little bit. So what I did was I knew that I'd gained the experience working as a coach in Sainsbury's, but I didn't have any official qualifications to back it up. So what I went out there is looked in terms of what coaching qualifications are out there, and thought I'll use my time effectively during that period. So when I leave the business, I've got the skills ready to start up my own business. So I went out there and became a qualified life coach and master NLP practitioner, and also gained some other smaller coaching qualifications along the way.
Okay, so when the news hit, you knew that you wanted to carry on doing coaching. And what led you specifically to want to do that with a view to starting out your own business? Why not, I don't know, do a similar role as another retailer or something like that? Why sort of take the risk, as some would see it, of actually, starting your own business?
Yeah. So even though I enjoy coaching in Sainsbury's, you're in a very much in a structure in terms of how much you can do and the autonomy around how you do it. So yeah, I could coach people, but there was only a limit you could take people. There was only a distance you could take people. And when I saw that actually there were coaches out there that were helping people get numerous different results, and specifically say career changes, I knew that was something where actually I could make a bigger impact in the world. There was a lot more people I could help and get bigger results than what I was getting in retail, and while doing the things that I enjoyed, which was coaching.
Cool. Interesting stuff. Interesting journey, definitely. So moving on to the main topic. So say someone comes up to you and says, look, Tom, I'm not happy where I am. I've been employed by XYZ. I've been there for, 5 years, and I'm just not happy. And I don't really know why I'm not happy. I'm just not happy. And I don't really know where to start. I don't know whether I should just change job but stay in the same field, whether it's the field that's the problem, I actually need to move somewhere else, whether I should start my own business. Oh, God, blimey, that sounds a bit risky. I just, I don't have the first clue where to start. So someone in that situation, where do they start?
Yeah. So I'll be honest with you, it's pretty much the question that everyone that I work with comes to me with, one way or the other. And I think the way I start that question is I actually take it a few steps back to them getting to that decision. So very much the reason why a lot of people get dissatisfied in their careers or feel like that they want more or need a change and want to start is because of when they started that career, they potentially had different values and beliefs when they started that career. So as we get older, we go through chunks of, say, 5 years where we change massively. What we are now was a completely different person to what we were 5 years ago. And as people progress through their careers, their values and beliefs change. But what a lot of people and it's still quite a common theme, is a lot of people have stayed in careers for longer than that. And what happens is when they go through that change, their beliefs and values have changed, but their career hasn't. And that's where I start seeing that disconnect between actually someone enjoying their job and now feeling, I want more. I need to look for something else. And that's because actually they've maybe gained a new belief or value that wasn't there when they first started their career.
So does that mean that everyone needs to change jobs every 5 years?
Well, if you kind of look at the job market now, it's something that happens a lot of the time. So when I started in retail, it was frowned upon to move around. And I remember sitting in an interview where someone questioned me saying, "You've moved jobs, you'll move jobs within Sainsbury's 3 or 4 times now. Can you not stick at something?" And it used to be viewed like that, but now, and looking at the industry as a whole, it's actually frowned upon when you stay in something for a long period of time. So I think we are getting to that place now where people very much are having maybe 5-year careers and on to the next thing.
And is that 5 years and then a wholesale change, or is it possible to align where you are now with that change? Can you do things within a current position which then help you to match your new beliefs and values?
Yeah, definitely. I think it depends how much you change in that period of time. So just using my own example, what I was doing and who I was 5 years ago and what I'm going to be like in 5 years' time, my values and beliefs are probably going to change massively because I've made that big leap in terms of my career. So actually 5 years' time, I might need to be looking to completely do a massive change myself. But it does depend on, if you've got quite a similar life to how you had 5 years ago and not much has changed around you, then it might just be a small change. So you can have some big life events. So you could have settled down to start a family and had kids, and actually that completely changes your belief and value system. And I find a lot of people, that's when those questions come about, talking about changing careers, because those are big values and beliefs that have changed. You value your time more, so you can spend more time with your family and your kids. And that's when those big changes need to happen. But if, say, something like that hasn't happened and you've maybe just grown as a person or got older and wiser and just seen things around the world a little bit differently, it could just be a small change. It could be one within your current organisation. It could be just mixing things up a little bit and slightly pivoting your role.
So how do you go about identifying with someone what has changed? I mean, obviously there's life events, someone's got married, they've started a family or whatever, but in terms of their own internal sort of outlook and that sort of thing, how do you identify where they were and where they are now?
Yep. So this is pretty much the starting point now. Where once I've taken someone back to kind of look at their past, this is where the journey very much begins. And probably to answer your question in terms of where do people start when they don't really know what to do next. And I do find it quite funny that we spend more time planning our next holiday than we do actually planning our next career move or what we want from our career. And it's very much that planning and self-discovery and actually taking a bit of time to write down some insights about yourself to start moving forward. So specifically what I will do with people that come to me that want to start working these bits out is actually asking the question, what do I want my career to give me? And believe it or not, I ask people that question and they go, oh, well, that's a tough one. Let me think about it. But they know the answers. And then they start, once they've come up with one, it's not long until they've got 10 or 20 things, but they've never had it written down in paper in front of them and had it staring at them in their face.
So what sort of things, just by way of example, do people say when you ask them that question? That's an interesting question. That what do I want my career to give me? That's a really interesting one, actually.
Yeah, so I like using that question specifically because it can mean anything to anyone. So I don't like to lead anyone on in terms of directing them to a certain route. And some of the common things that I see is work-life balance or a certain salary expectation. It could be very practical stuff around commute. It could be more emotional side of things is I want my career to make me happy. It can go pretty much anywhere. You get those that are very much talk about the emotional side of what they want their career to give them, like a boss that values them or fulfillment. But then it can very much go on the practical side where it is those, salary, distance, hours, weekends off, for example.
Do you find that some people actually find that quite hard, sort of starting that process of actually, working out, well, what is it they want? I mean, I guess you see the dream lifestyle, and it's the, I don't know, for some people it's the yacht and the Lamborghini or whatever. I mean, do people think, oh god, that's got to be what I want, the dream lifestyle, the I don't know, the Playboy lifestyle, for want of a better word, or are people able to start thinking actually a bit more realistically? Well, actually, it's not what I want that's on Instagram or social media or whatever, but it's now no actually, what is it that I want? Is that something that's difficult for people, or does it come naturally, or how do you find that?
I'll be honest with you, it does normally come quite naturally. I've not really had someone that's said anything unrealistic. And even if they do, if they believe that that's realistic for them, then it's exactly what should be on their career plan anyway. So I do think people do look internally and come up with what they see and can imagine them getting from their career. So it is normally realistic to what they expect. I've not really had someone say something and then, like a certain lifestyle and then go, oh, actually, no, I'm not sure I could attain that. It very much what everyone says is what they want and they see as attainable.
Okay. And so that's actually quite encouraging that people can do that they can come up with something that's attainable, and it's, I guess, something that might put people off is, I could never do that. But from what you're describing, it is within everyone to write that down and get it down.
Yeah, definitely. It is. Ultimately, I find that everyone does know what they want. They've never just spent the time getting it down into words, so it's staring them in the face. It's all they've just never really thought in terms of the detail on how those certain things that they want their career to give them, how they align, and what that looks like as a whole. That's what I find probably people struggle with, is starting to prioritize this list as well, in terms of actually they'll come up with a load of different values and beliefs that shine through in what they want. So, I want to be happy and work-life balance. You see all that come through in it, but they never get time to, well, they don't really think about actually what's the most important. So they might go chasing a job because they think the salary is important, but never really thought about actually what was actually more important to them was work-life balance. And they've gone after the salary that hasn't given them, say, the work-life balance. They might have both been on the list, but people haven't spent time prioritizing that list either.
So when someone comes up with this list, is that the next stage to work out what the order of priority is on that? And you advocate that people don't necessarily make changes which fulfill 6 points, 8 points, but they pick out, I don't know, the top. How many of those points should people be aiming for initially?
So I think when doing the initial kind of thinking stage of the process, as many as you can possibly get, the more information you get, the better, and the more time you spend on it. So those that kind of rush through it and go, oh, I don't really believe in this kind of stuff, and they just kind of breeze over it because they think they know what they want and they don't need to write it down to show them that. It needs to be a task that you spend a good amount of time, that you can actually say you spent a good amount of time on, and you could come up with, say, 10 points. You could say you could come up with 20 points. I think anything between 10 and 20 points is probably that you've done a decent job of it. And what you want to do from that 10 to 20 list is get it cut down into your top 10. That is, I feel, always find is the right amount of stuff that you want your career to give you, without it either being too overwhelming or too short that you've kind of not thought about everything that you want from your career.
Okay. And going back to what you were saying about people making lists that are realistic, that it's something they feel is realistic to them. How do you deal with the danger of going the other way, that people actually have low expectations about what's realistic? Someone who thinks, oh, I could never do something where I earn X amount, or I could never do something that involves that, but where actually possibly what's holding them back there is their own belief. So how do how do you identify that? How do you draw it out, and how do you counter that?
Yeah, so some of the processes that I use in my career change coaching is very much to help people stop effectively criticizing their ideas before they rule them out. So I find that everyone will come up with the ideas, but very much like what you said there is they'll start going, no, I can't do that, or that's not realistic. And what I very much set as a standard at the beginning is don't rule anything out. Just get all your ideas out. Don't start criticizing them yet, because what I find is the human brain is actually pretty lazy. And when you come up with actually one okay idea out of, let's say someone came up with 10 career ideas and one of them sounds pretty okay, it probably isn't their full capability of what they could do, but they go, yeah, I could do that. The human mind gets drawn to it. And that is all they can see. Amongst the other 10, there could be another 5 great options that they could do. Some of them, helping them exceed further in their careers in terms of how much they want to achieve and what they want their career to give them. And it's ensuring that criticism and that lazy thinking doesn't come into the early stages of the career change process.
Okay, so that's a really important point, isn't it? That people have got to not immediately rule something out because they, for whatever reason, think it might not be attainable. It's got to be there on the table. And then, yeah, okay, so that's important to you. Let's push on that. Let's just see how you would get there and that sort of thing.
And I'll give you an example of how this can go horribly wrong in terms of where people get stuck on an idea. I had a client come to me, and when doing the same activity and a little bit further down the line, once we'd done the values bit and then we started looking at career ideas, she said to me, I want to be a pop star, which is great, fantastic that she had the aspirations to do that. But when we'd kind of looked at, and this is where I said the most important bit and where I kind of took us back a few steps, is looking at your values and beliefs. When she'd done that activity and then she compared it to where she wanted to be in terms of being a pop star, her most in value, the thing that she wanted to get most from her work was helping people. And she couldn't see how the lifestyle of a pop star, how it was, dog eat dog at world, it was a very stressful life and you don't really have a complete connection with your fans. She identified actually being a pop star was not going to give her what she wanted from her career. And actually, when she looked at all the other ideas that she'd had, one that then started to stand out to her is actually she had on there that she wanted to be an events planner for a charity. And actually, she could see how who she was and what she wanted to do and what she wanted to get from her career sat completely in that role.
So I think we've touched on this. So after you've got this list of that you've answered this question, what do I want my career to give me? So the next stage after that, you were talking about people writing down their ideas for careers. So is that sort of stage 2 of the process?
Yeah. So once I guess to kind of sum it up, once you know who you are, then you can start finding the work that aligns to who you are. So it is really important. Again, probably a point I really want to make is that never start with the jobs first. Start learning about yourself and what you want, because you will, and this is a kind of natural thing that I see in the career change process, is people will go, right, I want to go get this job. And they don't really think about, they just get stuck on that job. So the important thing first is think about what you want and then find jobs that fulfill what you want. So yeah, that second step is then actually about yourself, and then you're going to go out there and find careers that match what you want your career to give you.
Okay, let's talk about that in a bit more detail. So say I've identified that I don't want to commute anymore. I want to work locally. I want a job that's got fairly predictable hours so that I can get home in the evenings to see my kids. I've got a certain salary or income expectation in mind so that I can maintain the lifestyle I want. And, maybe I've got a few other things on my list. How do you then turn that into identifying jobs which might actually give you that?
Yep. So it is very simple, actually. So I'm not a big believer in job search websites. I'm not a big fan on that. That's the most effective way for those that want to change careers. I don't find that's the most effective way for them to land new careers through those job search websites, because actually every job on a job search website has probably over 100 applicants, and trying to get through those, you're already up against it in terms of the numbers. But one value I find that job search websites have is you have got a encyclopedia of every job out there with a job spec of all the things that those job offers. And the key is then using those job search websites and use your career specification, what you did in terms of what you want your career to give you, and put a filter on those job search websites to start narrowing down your search. So just in terms of giving a few examples of what you said there, you could start putting in their distance away from home and put that in the filter. You could put the salary in there. If you've done a bit of work around the kind of work that you like doing, so you may like coaching that you've identified from that earlier stuff about yourself, you could put coaching in the search bar, and all of a sudden you start bringing in career ideas that you may never have thought of by using that job search website. Okay.
And so does this actually work? And I'm just sort of thinking, okay, so I look for jobs which are 10 miles from my home with this salary, and I don't know, I've identified that I like working with people, I like acting for clients or that sort of thing. A job search site's sufficiently sophisticated that you can actually plug in your what you want from your career and get some ideas spat out the other end that says, yeah, and here's some stuff that you should consider.
Yep, completely. So a lot of it's more practical. So you do have to think a little bit around, if you say you want your career to make you happy, you're going to have to think about the bits underlining around that in terms of what will give you that happiness. But once you start getting a few ideas in terms of, I'll give you another example. One of my clients that I was working with, she said to me that when she was doing all this work, she realized that she really enjoyed organizing things. It was, in her personal life, at work, in retail, she loved organizing the warehouse. She loved organizing people. So what she did is she went onto a job search website and put organizing in the search bar, and then filtered the other kind of distance and salary expectations. Instantly, she had, I think it was about 89 different career options that matched what her salary and distance expectations were, that all key functions were around organizing. For her, she went and hers was around organizing a team within a call center. And that was the one that she kind of homed in on because actually she spent a lot of time organizing. She could organize that team, and she loved the rest around the job and what that gave her. But it does work. It brings ideas that you've never thought about.
Okay. So can you give us an example or two of like some of the more radical changes that you've seen people make? So I don't know, going from doctor to working in a pet rescue centre. I don't know. Give some examples of what the sorts of transitions that you've seen people make.
Yeah, so I think probably one of the biggest transitions I've seen is, again, a lot of people that I work with have started in retail. So this particular person had started, they were a retail manager in a large retailer. And after doing these exercises, some of the key kind of words that came about for them were things like analytical. They loved, at university, I think they'd done a music design course. They'd done loads of IT and design and all throughout their life, but they found themselves as a retail manager. But yeah, some of the skills they had that they enjoyed and what they liked using was things like being analytical, working on projects, working as part of the team. So when doing this example, what came up, and this one was quite a realization for them. We didn't actually come up with this answer together. It was after one of our sessions. They'd gone home, had a bit of reflection, done a little bit of research on their own. Next time they came in to see me, they sat down and said, I want to be a software engineer. And I was like, okay, before we were looking at, I think they wanted to work in events and stuff because that seemed like the natural, like music events, that seemed like the natural progression in terms of the skills that they had and what they'd had experience in and what they'd done at university. But having looked at all the skills and what they enjoyed doing, that stood out to them. And as a result of identifying that, they actually managed to do an apprenticeship within the retailer they work for to become a software engineer. And because they've already had their foot in the door, they managed to land that and start training as a software engineer in the retailer that they work for. But it was something they'd never considered or believed they could do.
Okay. And if someone does come up with that sort of fairly radical change, what can they do to sort of just sense check it, sort of think, okay, so, whoa, hang on, that's a bit different. Am I sure that's right? You know, with my background and my experience and my history. So what can you do to, you know, assure yourself that actually, you know, this is a good option for you to try out?
And this is actually my next stage in the career change process. So what I call this is career prototyping. So this is, again, something that I think some people do naturally, but don't think we really think we're doing it. So that is effectively, there's two ways of doing it. And there's an easy way and a harder way. And I'll be honest with you, the harder way is the most effective and will ensure that you get the results that you want. So I'll start with the easier way though. So let's just say that you decided that you wanted to be a software engineer, using my previous example, and it was completely a massive change to what you were doing already. Now, again, we live in a world now where through social media, we're connected to pretty much everyone in the world. And if you want to find out about what a software engineer does, you can now go onto LinkedIn, type in software engineer, and you've now got however many software engineers there are in the world at your fingertips. And what I get my clients to do is to reach out to those people that are doing I'll try and get them to find them doing a similar job as possible. So there's tons of different types of software engineers out there, I'm sure. And in this case, my client reached out to software engineers that worked in the retail environment. And it's just reaching out to them and saying, you know, I'm really interested in what you do. This is what I do currently. I'd love to just pick up a conversation, or even if it's an email conversation, ideally you want to look for them locally so you can meet them for coffee and probe them about their career choices. We do it naturally. If we get a job offer, we talk to our friends or we talk to people we know that have done similar jobs to ask them about their views on it and their advice. But what better than getting that advice from someone currently doing the job?
And I'd imagine that's quite a shift for people. I mean, naturally, you know, the British very reserved, don't want to kick up a fuss. And so just the idea itself of getting in contact with a complete stranger and say, hi, I'd like to ask you about your job, that's going to be quite scary to do itself, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think I'm normally met with hesitation around why would someone that I don't know want to help me? That's pretty much the one thing that comes straight to mind. And I always come up with the analogies. If you're in the high street and someone pulls up next to you and they say, I'm trying to find XYZ, I don't know many times when someone says, no, I'm not going to help you. You know, when people come to us asking for help, it's a natural human response to want to help that person. And as long as you approach that conversation in a nice, friendly way, most of the time, someone will be willing to help you.
Have you ever had clients who've done this and they've been met with a flat refusal from people?
I've never had a refusal. You get people not reply. You know, there is a lot of people that are busy, they don't have time, and they see some of these messages and they go, no, I've not got time to help. You know, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I'd say it's probably a 50-50 response rate. But you do get those from, as long as you reach out to enough people, you get enough people that will give you the information you need.
And then, so you've set that up. How do you know what questions to ask so that I guess you're never going to be 100% certain about something until you've actually done it. But we're talking here about, I guess, giving yourself the best chance. So how do you know what questions to ask so that you know whether something is right for you?
Yeah. So it's very much asking the questions that the reason why a lot of people feel apprehensive about making those massive career changes is because of fear. And fear is effectively false evidence appearing real. I love that acronym because I so believe that is exactly what fear is. And it's ensuring that you're asking questions around that fear so that you're filling in the gaps. We've currently put in our minds that we can't do that career, or we're nervous about doing it because of, I need that qualification or this qualification, for example. So that would be one of the questions. So you would ask them, what qualifications did you need to do this role? How long did it take you? Where did you go to do that qualification? What's the best place? What does the marketplace, or what does your company deem as the right qualification for this role? And it's just thinking about your own fears and your own kind of gaps you need to fill, and asking questions around that.
Okay, so was that false evidence appearing real for fear? I like that. Yeah. I like that a lot. That's really good. Okay, so someone's done that. They've satisfied themselves that it's worth giving it a go. Next step is they've got to get their foot in the door, I suppose.
Yeah, and I guess there's two ways that lead on for this. So I said there was an easy way and there's a hard way.
You did, yes. I wanted to come back to that, yeah.
Yeah, so the hard way, again, like I said, it is the hardest way of doing it. And this is actually experiencing it yourself. So you can go and ask people questions, and there's only so far that can go. Ideally, you want to do as much as possible to experience the new career that you want to do, because actually that's the only way you're going to get the most accurate facts and evidence around if this is the right career for you. And there's no direct path to landing up on this, because it depends on the career that you're going for. But I guess some of the things you can look at is getting into volunteering opportunities that involve the career that you're looking at doing. It could be things like apprenticeships. It could be actually going to say, can I work at your company for free for a day to shadow someone? A lot of companies do allow you to do that.
Really?
Yeah. I've had people just message saying, is it possible that I can shadow you for the day? And it does depend on the company, but I've had people be allowed in. Even places like the police, they do ride-alongs and shadowing, that you're allowed to shadow the police. There's tons of organisations that allow you to do that.
Okay, and so how do you set that up? I mean, do you just find a company that looks like it might fit the bill and ask them?
Yeah, it's you could, if you've decided in terms of that, let's use a software engineer example. So let's say you've decided you want to be a software engineer. There's a couple of ways you can go about experiencing it. First thing, it could be the person that you've been speaking to, asking questions about. You could tempt them and say, actually, is there any way that I could volunteer to work on a bit of the project for free, at weekends or something? That's normally the most natural route in, is thinking about how could I help them for free. I know, some people feel uncomfortable about going, well, I'm going to work for free. But if you think in terms of your career, if this is going to be the next 5 years of your life, for example, actually maybe spending a couple of weekends for the next couple of months is actually probably time well spent if you're going to ensure that you've made the right career choice for the next 5 years. I've done it personally. So when I was in my early days in retail, I actually wanted to join the police, and I started volunteering. And I looked on their website, and they did volunteering positions. And there are a lot of volunteer roles attached to most companies now.
Okay. So have you had any instances where someone's been through all this process and they've started something, and 6 months to a year later, they've come back to you and said, Tom, it just didn't work. It just didn't work out. I mean, has that happened? And if so, why does that happen?
Has it happened? I'll be honest with you, it's not really happened in terms of that kind of got to it and gone, I've done everything wrong and I've made a massive mistake. People learn. I've had people where they've gone through the process and then learned more about themselves and actually think they've even got a better idea. I've not really had anyone get to the process where they've gone through it all and gone, I've made a massive mistake. And the reason for that is putting, like I put the emphasis on already, is ensuring that you do the work on yourself first, and ensuring that you're doing this interview and experience activity to the best of your ability, into ensuring that you've asked enough people, ensuring that you've experienced as much as you can. If you don't put the work in, then you're going to see that later down the line in your career change. So it is really important that you spend a huge amount of time in that, getting to know yourself and getting to know the job that you want to do better.
Okay. And what would you say to someone who says, look, this is the world of work. I mean, no one really enjoys their job, do they? I mean, this is, you can do all this, but ultimately you're working and you're just, looking for retirement. So what do you say to someone who might have that sort of approach?
Yeah. So someone that has that sort of approach has never done the work when they've found when who they are and what they do aligns with who they are. So when someone has found work that aligns to who they are, they don't have that belief or mentality anymore. And the people that say that have never spent time to really find a career that gives them everything they want.
Tom, that's been absolutely brilliant. I'm sure that you've probably got about a gazillion resources you could offer to people, but if you had to pick just one which someone listening to this who thinks, yeah, okay, I think this is worth exploring further, what would you suggest they start with?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, I've got two, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because these are completely two different ideas. So I know that a lot of people that come to me struggle with the being creative and coming up with ideas. I think that's one that a lot of people struggle with, especially in the world that we live in that's so structured. And one book that has found very influential in my life and a lot of people that I've worked with is Choose Yourself by James Altucher. So that's very much about one of the key chapters in his book is around generating ideas and how to generate fantastic ideas. And he's someone that has come from nothing many times, where he's lost everything, gone bankrupt through the marketing crisis, and always then bounced back because of being able to generate great ideas. And the other one is Designing Your Life by Bill Burnett. So very much uses the same structure that I've spoken about today. I think it's one that I've gained a lot of inspiration from, and that you'll see through very much in my coaching. And that book is very career based. It's very life and career based, and it's about designing your life and designing your career. And it is very similar to what I've spoken about today. So if anyone wants, I guess, more detail around what I've spoken about, that book is your one and be all and one all resource on that.
Fantastic. Well, I'll make sure that we refer to those in the show notes. So finally, where can people get in touch with you, find out more about you? What's the best way to get hold of you?
Yep. So in terms of the best way for me is connecting with me on social media. So Tom Harris Coaching on Facebook. So it's facebook.com/Tom Harris Coaching. Because I guess from my point of view, I work with so many different people. I do have a website, but it's very much retail redundancy based. But for me, if anyone wants to find out more about what I do, I've got quite a lot of online communities. The best thing to do is reach out to me on Facebook to have more specific conversation. And I post a lot of the stuff I've spoken about today up through social media.
Fantastic. Okay, well, I will definitely put that link on the show notes. Tom, thank you so much for your time. It's been absolutely fantastic. Some really, really valuable tips, which I'm sure a lot of people are going to find really very helpful.
That's okay. Thank you for having me.
Great. Thanks. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that interview and found it useful. The really interesting tip that I took from that was this notion that we spend more time planning our holidays than we do planning our careers. And why is that? I mean, part of me, I suppose, guesses that it's because holidays are things that we enjoy. We want to invest a lot of time in that. And the perception maybe is that work is just something that we're not going to enjoy. And so we don't necessarily invest as much time in that as we do the things that we are going to enjoy. But it's clear, certainly from what Tom was saying, that he doesn't think that that's the right approach. We really should be approaching this from the mindset that we can find the thing we want to do. We can find the job or career which we are going to enjoy and is going to make us happy. We just need to spend a bit of time investing in ourselves, finding ourselves, for want of a better phrase, to work out what it is that is good for us. What is it that is going to make us happy and we're going to enjoy? And I guess also the fact that we don't necessarily have to pick something that is going to be our job for life. He mentioned that our values change every 5 years, and so really we need to find something which is right for us now, and not necessarily something that's going to be right for us in 10, 15, 20 years' time, and that's something that we all should definitely bear in mind. You'll find everything we've talked about on the show notes page. That's at changeworklife.com/3 for episode 3. So changeworklife.com/3. And we've got another great interview next week. So make sure you subscribe and don't miss that one or any future interviews. We've got some real crackers coming up. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you next time. Cheers. Bye.